Hi, I'm Sam Putnam. I'm the chef at the Ashmont Grill, and today I'm going to make a 7-hour leg of lamb and show you how to do that. It's a relatively easy dish to make. It takes a long time, but the actual prep time is pretty minimal. And while you're making your 7-hour lamb for Easter or whatever holiday you wanted to make it for, you'll have a lot of time to make desserts. I'll start by showing you how to put the lamb together. The lamb is roasted very slowly at a very low temperature for about 7 hours with just a little bit of vegetables underneath it to flavor the pan juices that develop over that long cooking time. Just a little bit of carrot, onion, celery. You don't have to be very careful about cutting them up. Just big chunks is fine. We'll cut these, put them in our roasting pan, and then we'll prepare the lamb to go in on top of that. So these will all go in here. We'll add a couple of bay leaves, and later we'll add a little bit of liquid. The lamb you're going to use for this recipe is a bone-in leg of lamb, not a boneless leg of lamb. It weighs about 6 to 8 pounds usually. This is maybe a little bit of a big one. When you get it from your butcher, you want to make sure that they remove the shank bone that comes out of this end of the lamb. It's a long, sort of skinny piece. Once they remove it, it looks like the lamb shanks that they sometimes sell in the store. It's okay if that shank is on there. It's just going to make the whole leg of lamb a little bit long and hard to fit in your oven. What we do is we take our leg of lamb. I trim a little bit of the excess fat off of it. If there's a lot of fat on it, you probably want to take some off. But you want to leave a lot of fat too, because that's where the flavor really develops in a leg of lamb. If you take all the fat off of it, you're going to lose a lot of that flavor that's specific to lamb. Then you're just going to take a paring knife and cut some about 1/2-inch slits randomly on both sides of the leg. Maybe 1 inch or 2 apart. That's so that we're going to make a little puree of garlic and anchovy. We can get some of that flavoring really inside the meat and not just on the outside of the leg. Once you've done that, you can take either a food processor or a blender. Take about a whole head of garlic, which is 10 to 12 cloves once you've peeled them. About 8 fillets of anchovies. These should be the oil pack, not the salt pack kind. Although if you do use the salt pack kind, you can just rinse them off and that'll be fine too. And then add probably about 1/2 cup of olive oil. Just enough to make sort of a coarse paste that you can then run over the lamb. So now we're just going to pulse this garlic and anchovies. Well, they're fairly well chopped. You don't want big pieces of garlic, but you don't want it to be a totally smooth puree either. That looks pretty good. Now, as I said, we're just going to take some of this paste and really try to work it into these slits that are in the lamb. This technique, which is called larding, is a good technique for a lot of different kinds of roast meats. Works well for a beef roast, very well on a whole pork loin, a pork roast, or a pork crown roast. Any kind of large piece of meat that you're going to roast. It's nice to sort of lard with herbs or garlic or different seasonings. So do that on both sides. And then take the remaining garlic anchovy mixture and really just spread it over the whole piece of meat. And when you're done, it should look something like this, nicely covered. So now we're going to season the lamb. The lamb, anchovies themselves have a fair amount of salt, which is one reason why it's nice to use them in a dish like this. Anchovies are often used as a component in slow roasted and braised meat dishes. A lot of people use anchovies in lamb ossobuco or veal ossobuco for the same reasons we're using them here. In part, a kind of salty depth of flavor that nicely complements the gaminess of the lamb itself. The leg of lamb, even though you've put that anchovy garlic mixture on it, still needs to be seasoned with some more salt. And I would sprinkle it fairly liberally. It's, again, a large amount of meat, and you need a fair amount of seasoning. I like to finish seasoning a roast like this with a fairly liberal amount of cracked black pepper. And then that should be ready to go in the oven. We're going to place the leg of lamb on top of the vegetables that we've placed in this roasting pan. And then we're going to go to our oven. We're going to add a little bit of liquid to allow the pan juices to develop in the bottom of the pan. So we're going to place a mixture of about a cup of white wine and a quart of chicken stock in the bottom of the pan. Now, the amount of liquid you'll put in your pan really depends on the size of the pan. What you want is a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch of liquid in the bottom of the pan. You certainly don't want to submerge the leg of lamb, but you want enough liquid in the bottom of the pan that those pan juices will develop and you won't end up with sort of a heavily caramelized or burnt mixture at the bottom of your roast. As I said, this is a 7-hour lamb. Now, to do that, we roast it at a very low temperature. You want to set your oven for 275 degrees. You could even do it a little bit more slowly. I find 275 degrees works fairly well. The lamb will be done somewhere between 6 and 9 hours. It depends on the size of your leg of lamb. As I said, this is a large one, likely to take closer to 9 hours. A nice 6-7 pound lamb should be done in around 6-7 hours. So shortly before you take your lamb out and serve it, you want to prepare these minted cannellini beans that you'll serve underneath the lamb. You can either cook your own cannellini beans from dry or use canned cannellini beans. If you use canned, I always recommend rinsing them and then reheating them just in a little plain water rather than using the canned liquid, which is always a little bit over-seasoned. These are cannellini beans I cooked myself. I heated them in a little bit of stock. And now we're just going to season them with a simple puree of lots of fresh mint, a little bit of olive oil, and a little bit of water. And you really want to use a lot of mint. I think the mistake that people most often make when cooking dishes like this is just they don't understand that to really get a mint flavor out of something, you just need a lot of mint. A little bit of mint in a dish just doesn't do anything. Mint is not a very intense herb, even though when you eat a little piece of it, it seems like it is. You really have to have a considerable amount of it in something for it to be a noticeable flavor. So just mix that puree into your beans. Make sure they're well seasoned with salt, and you're ready to go. It's a nice green, pretty accompaniment for the lamb. So after, as I said, 6 to 9 hours, your lamb will come out of the oven. You can cook the lamb uncovered the whole time, but if you notice it starting to get browner than you'd like, you can either cover it loosely with a little parchment paper or loosely cover it with aluminum foil. Either way, it should look nicely browned like this by the time it actually comes out of the oven. The lamb itself, the meat, should feel very tender to you when you touch it. Certainly fully cooked. And once you take it out of the oven, you're going to need to strain the stock that we've produced and to make a nice little pan sauce to go over your lamb. Okay, so I've taken our stock and our pan sauce and taken the fat off it. Now, I want to talk about what you're going to do with the lamb. as I said, this is a bone-in leg of lamb. There's a long bone that runs through the lamb like this. There's a smaller bone over here called a chine bone. And then there's a little piece, I think, that attaches to that second chine bone, which comes across over here. This may or may not be there, depending on how your particular butcher trims your leg of lamb. But in any case, you're certainly going to have at least one or two major bones. You can treat this in one of two ways. If you like, the lamb is so fully cooked and tender that you can just twist these bones and really just pull them right out of the leg. At that point, the lamb will break up a little bit, but you'll still have nice big muscle pieces that you can then slice and serve. Alternatively, if you're presenting this at a holiday table, Passover Seder, an Easter dinner, you might want to put the lamb on a platter, serve it on the bone, and in that case, it's quite easy to just carve your servings right off of it like that. I'll show you a little bit of that right now. There's a nice big muscle group right here. You can just start with slices. As you can see, this lamb after 7 hours is extremely tender. You could probably carve this with a butter knife almost. The lamb will be, fully cooked. It's not like a rare leg of lamb, but it'll be extremely tender and juicy. The way I like to plate this dish, take some of these nice beans, place them in the bottom of a large bowl or a plate with some lip. There will be a little liquid, so you certainly want some kind of rim on your plate. Top the lamb with a couple of nice slices, or the beans with a couple of nice slices of lamb. And then just moisten the whole dish, both the beans and the lamb, with your pan sauce. And then it's always nice to top slow-cooked meat with a little bit of gremolata, particularly lamb. Gremolata is just a mixture of minced lemon zest, garlic, and parsley. You can sometimes substitute orange zest for the lemon zest. Some people sometimes put a little bit of nuts in their gremolata. In any case, just sprinkle that mixture over the dish, and there it is, your 7-hour lamb. You're ready to eat.